Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock on this delightful summer day. I'm the Reverend Ned Wight, the interim senior minister here at the congregation through the middle of August. And I serve with the Reverend Jennifer Brower and the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, who will be back next month. Actually, we'll be back tomorrow, which is next month. So who knew? She's been away on a 6-month sabbatical, and we wish her very well returning to work here at the congregation. I'm serving today with Iris McKenna, who is our worship assistant, and delighted to have Iris serving with me. And I want to begin by asking you all to give a round of applause and thanks to Chris and Carlene from New York AV in the bridge, because this is the last Sunday that New York AV will be providing some technical support for us for our sound system. And Chris and Carlene have been fabulous supporters. So you will be missed. You got a standing ovation on this side. I just want you to know. If you are a newcomer today, should be a blue card in the pew in front of you. Please fill that out so that we can know if there are any ways that we might be helpful to you. There will not be a UU Cafe as such today, but there will be an extension of the bagel breakfast, very light fare for only $1. So please, if that's something that you would like to fortify yourself for the rest of your day, please stop by that after the service in the social hall. There's a women's group lunch for those who signed up in advance over in, I believe that's in the Beach House. Events this week are listed in the calendar inside your order of service. Just a note that the building will be closed this Thursday, July 4th, for Independence Day. Next week, preaching will be the Reverend Karen Carlo, who returns as a guest to speak on letting go of certainty and embracing a more inclusive vision of humanity. So I think that she's been a visitor with us before, and we welcome her back. There's also a notice about summer religious education programs, arts, and nature at the Rock beginning on July 14th. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not reference the 50th anniversary of the uprising at the Stonewall Inn on June 28th, in which trans women of color took the lead in challenging decades of persistent police harassment against lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer individuals. As a gay man myself, I owe them a huge debt of gratitude and believe that our society is fairer and more just as a result of their courage. I will not be joining the 5 million people who will be in New York today, and I am grateful for the opportunity to have an excuse not to do that. Thank you very much. That being said, I invite you to greet your neighbor coolly, since it's warm outside. It will be good.
opening words are those of David C. Pohl. We come to this time and this place to rediscover the wondrous gift of free religious community, to renew our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life, to reaffirm the way of the open mind and full heart, to rekindle the flame of memory and hope, and to reclaim the vision of an earth made fair, with all her people one. We hallow this time together by kindling the flame of our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, the words of Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Please rise in body and spirit, or spirit, to sing hymn number 1008 in the Teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Hymn number 1008.
Please remain standing for our words and song of affirmation that you'll find printed in your order of service. Let us say together, love is the doctrine of this congregation, the quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need. This do we affirm and covenant with each other. Please be seated. I want to have a special call out to Leah for choosing spectacular songs today. When she found out what the theme was, everybody makes mistakes, I think she found two of the finest cautionary tale songs that she could possibly have chosen. And listen closely to the words of this first one. Thank you so much, Leah. This is exciting. And Kristen, thank you for your service today as well.
I met a man without a dollar to his name, who had no traits of any value but his smile. I met a man who had no yearn or claim to fame, who was content to let life pass him for a while. And I was sure that all I ever wanted was a life like the movie stars led. And he kissed me right here, and he said, I'll give you stars and the moon and a soul to guide you and a promise I'll never go. I'll give you hope to bring out all the life inside you and the strength that will help you grow. I'll give you truth and a future that's 20 times better than any Hollywood plot. And I thought, you know, I'd rather have a yacht. I met a man who lived his life out on the road, who left a wife and kids in Portland on a whim. I met a man whose fire and passion always showed, who asked if I could spare a week to ride with him. But I was sure that all I ever wanted was a life that was scripted and planned. And he said, but you don't understand. I'll give you stars and the moon and the open highway and a river beneath your feet. I'll give you days full of dreams if you travel my way and a summer you can't repeat. I'll give you nights full of passion and days of adventure, no strings, just warm summer rain. And I thought, you know, I'd rather have champagne. I met a man who had a fortune in the bank, who had retired at age 30, set for life. I met a man and didn't know which stars to thank, and then he asked one day if I would be his wife. And I looked up, and all I could think of was the life I had dreamed I would live. And I said to him, what will you give? I'll give you cars and a townhouse in Turtle Bay and a fur and a diamond ring, and we'll get married in Spain on my yacht today, and we'll honeymoon in Beijing, and you'll meet stars at the parties I throw at my villas in Nice and Paris in June. And I thought, okay. And I took a breath, and I got my yacht, and the years went by, and it never changed, and it never grew, and I never dreamed. And I woke one day, and I looked around, and I thought, my God, I'll never have the moon.
Was I right? Thank you, Leah. Today's offering will support the work of the National Religious Coalition Against Torture, or NERCAT. It's an organization of over 300 religious denominations, faith groups, regional organizations, and local congregations committed to ending U.S.-sponsored torture and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. UUCSR is currently partnering with NERCAT to eliminate solitary confinement in U.S. prisons and jails. Checks may be made out to NERCAT or UUCSR with NERCAT on the memo line. The ushers will please come forward for the receipt of this morning's offering.
spirit of meditation and prayer, we share with you the prodigal son. Then Jesus said there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father,
"Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me."
So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country, and then he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said,
"How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough to eat and to spare, but here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.'
So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion, and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him,
'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.'
But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate."
This is the time in our service when we invite those who wish to do so to light candles to acknowledge joys or sorrows, celebrations or concerns. Once again, in the interest of safety, please light your own candle from the nearest burning candle so that you don't have to reach across any open flames. Please come forward at this time should you wish to light a candle. please join us in reading number 637, A Litany of Atonement in the Gray Hymnal, number 637. And if you would please respond by reading the words in italics. 637. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again. For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the need of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again. For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again. For losing sight of our unity. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again.
For those and for so many acts both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
To see the light.
with songs like that, a sermon is just wasted. I mean, it's just... But I'm going to go ahead anyway. All right. At first, I had a hard time listing mistakes in my life significant enough to include in this sermon, but once I got going, they kept tumbling out of my memory. I stopped at about 25. Will undoubtedly add to the list in my dreams and memories all this week, but I want to share a few of these with you today as little vignettes. I needed a way of classifying them, so I went to my sure source, Webster's 7 New Collegiate Dictionary. A mistake, wrong action or statement proceeding from faulty judgment, inadequate knowledge, or inattention. Inadequate knowledge, faulty judgment, inattention. Let's start with inadequate knowledge. First vignette was when I was about 8 years old, riding home with Mom from my sister's ballet lessons, making small talk. "The McNichols just got a new Dodge," Mom commented. "It's an Oldsmobile," I said. "Oh, no, it's not, Nettie. I'm sure it's a Dodge." "No, it's an Oldsmobile. I'm positive." "Want to put some money on it?" Mom asked. "What do you mean?" "If you're so sure, we could make a bet." "Okay," I said with unwavering confidence. "I'll bet you $5 the McNichols just got a new Oldsmobile." "$5?" she asked in disbelief. $5, I repeated, utterly sure that I was now richer by $5, an unimaginably large amount of money for an 8-year-old in 1955. When we got home, I'm not sure who made the call to the McNichols, but I remember the answer: "We just bought a new Dodge." I went upstairs to my room and cried. I think I cried again when I turned the $5 over to Mom. How we suffer when we make avoidable mistakes based on inadequate knowledge, and how firmly we resolve next time not to wager so much on what we think we know. The next vignette, the year is 1966. I was 19. I just attended an American Institute of Architects convention in Portland, sponsored on the topic of the urban environment on the city. The Secular City had just been published. I was asked to preach a sermon at that church on my experience. I had taken extensive notes, and I spent days organizing my notes. The big day arrived. I entered the pulpit with my manuscript and proceeded to preach for over 45 minutes. I shivered to think about this now. In the receiving line, most of the adult members were polite and gracious. As the high school choir director shook my hand, he slipped a piece of paper into it. When I was alone, I looked at the paper. "Don't tell us everything you know all at once. Sometimes less is more." Later, I was grateful to all those who had listened so attentively when they were bored to exhaustion, but most of all to Dick Barber, who reminded me that the human attention span is indeed limited, even to take in pearls of youthful wisdom. How we suffer when we make avoidable mistakes based on inadequate knowledge, and how firmly we resolve next time to ask ourselves if this is one of those occasions when less might be more. How about faulty judgment? There's actually a fine line between inadequate knowledge and faulty judgment. As I cast my eye over my lurid past, I noted instances in which I should have known better. Mistakes of judgment more than lack of knowledge. The grilled cheese sandwich incident may be on the cusp of these two categories. I was 7, could have been older, perish the thought. I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt. I was home alone after school and hungry for a snack. I opened the fridge. Bread and sliced American cheese caught my eye. Boy, would a grilled cheese sandwich taste good right now. I took bread and cheese out of the fridge. Without thinking it through, I placed the cheese on top of the slices of bread and popped them into our very typical two-slice toaster. I knew something was wrong when nasty smoke started drifting up. Something was very wrong when the cycle ended and nothing popped up at all. I made a split-second decision to go upstairs and hide under my bed. And as I feared, Dad was not pleased. He spent the better part of Saturday dismantling and cleaning charred cheese out of the heating elements of our toaster. I don't remember what my punishment was, but it couldn't have been worse than the torture of those minutes or hours waiting for my father's wrath. How we suffer when we make avoidable mistakes based on faulty judgment, and how firmly we resolve next time to think things through before we act. My next big mistake occurred at Summit Unitarian Universalist Fellowship on an April Sunday in 2002. It was memorable for being the day of a congregational meeting and a men's chorus concert and the great piano incident. I was preoccupied as I was helping with setup, and I was feeling out of sorts and impatient. As I was rolling the piano into place, not asking anyone for help, of course, it tipped over and landed on my right shoe with my foot inside. Ouch! Needless to say, I begged off on the Simple Gifts dance routine for the evening performance since I could hardly walk. How we suffer when we make avoidable mistakes based on faulty judgment at age 7 or age 55, and how firmly we resolve next time to ask for help when we need it. Inattention. This next vignette falls somewhere between faulty judgment and inattention. We'd had a significant snowfall the night before. I went out to my car to go to a session with my trainer, Brian. The parking lot at Cedarmere, where I live, was packed. I had only 10 minutes to get to the gym. The car immediately behind me had parked really close to my own car. Initially, I thought I had room to turn as I backed out and clear that car's bumper. I was angry about the crowded parking lot, about being late for my session, probably about a host of other things on my mind. So I continued backing out, even though something didn't feel quite right. And sure enough, when I got to the gym, there were discernible scratches on my right rear passenger door. This was a couple of years ago, and I've never had the dent repaired as a reminder to myself to exercise better judgment, especially when stressed, and to pay attention. How we suffer when we make avoidable mistakes based on faulty judgment and inattention, and how firmly we resolve next time to slow down, calm down, and not cut corners. Mistakes based on inattention have plagued me in myriad ways throughout my life. Theologians have long spoken of sins of commission and sins of omission, what we do and what we leave undone. Mistakes fall into these categories as well. So this third category of mistakes are as often mistakes of omission as of commission, mistakes due to inattention. I have a lifelong tendency toward not paying sufficient attention to my own needs that I'm still wrestling with. I know I'm not alone in this. This is a congregation of dedicated volunteers, sometimes trying too hard to please. Maybe the roots are in our genes, in our relationship with our families of origin, in our early religious trainings. I was taught that love is the highest virtue, that loving service to others is our highest calling, that loving our neighbors is the main event in life, and conveniently forgot that Jesus taught us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Never quite trusted that self-love thing, especially since church also taught us that pride was the chief sin. From the vantage point of 72 years, I can look at a host of life decisions in the context of pleasing others, too often at my own expense. These are mistakes that are hard to correct. We get used to doing this, and so does everybody else. One discipline that can help, I think, is to ask yourself, am I acting from fear or from love? If it's not love, choose a different action or a different motivation. How we suffer when we make avoidable mistakes based on inattention to our deepest selves, and how firmly we resolve next time to muster the courage to show ourselves the same love we're so eager to extend to others. Of course, the biggest mistakes in our lives involve all three: inadequate knowledge, faulty judgment, and inattention. It certainly applies to my staying in the closet so long as a gay man, only emerging fully in my early 40s. I didn't know myself as well as I could have, and I didn't trust what I knew of other people who loved me. I projected judgment and condemnation where there was actually plenty of understanding and support. I didn't pay sufficient attention to the acute discomfort of trying to lead a life with two distinct and separate identities. How we suffer when we make avoidable mistakes based on inadequate knowledge, faulty judgment, and inattention. And how firmly we resolve next time to be bolder in our trust and our risk-taking for speaking and living the truth. It's inevitable that we make mistakes in our lives, sometimes huge ones. It's a bond we all share with one another. We are the creatures who make mistakes, and as such, all of us have had the same range of experience reactions to our mistakes or those of others. To suffer them, to make stories out of them, cautionary tales as I've done today, to honor them, to learn from them, to know that we will make others before we die, to trust that the universe, a compassionate Father, life, the nature of things, God, will give us a chance to carry on, to start over, and that we will find within ourselves the courage and support and trust to seize that chance over and over again. My brother Barry's Methodist Youth Fellowship competition speech quoted Alexander Pope: "To err is human, to forgive divine. Not failure, but low aim is crime." It is human to make mistakes. It is also human to forgive others and ourselves. And it is our calling to aim high, to take risks, to start over, to live boldly out of a place of trust. May this congregation embolden and empower us to think big, to risk making mistakes, to hold us when we fail and when we forgive, and to invite us to accept forgiveness and go on loving ourselves and move on. We are creatures who make mistakes, but we are not creatures made by mistake. Experience is the name everyone gives to their mistakes, wrote Oscar Wilde. He was right. That's what it means to be human. Everybody makes mistakes. What a relief, what a challenge, and what a blessing. So may it always be. Shalom, blessed be, insha'Allah, aho, shanti, amen. In this spirit, let us sing hymn number 120 in the gray hymnal, 120, Turn Back, and rise in body or spirit as we join in this together. Please be seated. Our closing words from Vivian Pomeroy. Forgive us that often we forgive ourselves so easily and others so hardly. Forgive us that we expect perfection from those to whom we show none. Forgive us for repelling people by the way we set a good example. Forgive us the folly of trying to improve a friend. Forbid that we should use our little idea of goodness as a spear to wound those who are different. Forbid that we should feel superior to others when we are only more shielded. And may we encourage the secret struggle of every person. So may it be.